Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Evening Review. My name is Sukhane Khache, and joining us later in studio is Mr. Brian Black, who is the National Chairperson of the Independent Patriots for Change. He will be reflecting on the good show of the IPC in the local and regional authority elections, as well as outcomes from his interview or his meeting with President Hage Geingob that was held after the fish rod scandal. But before we tune into the interview, please do have a look at our front page. Good afternoon, Mr. Black.
Good afternoon, Hannah.
Your campaign as a regional councillor is built around fighting crime. What do you intend to achieve within your constituency?
Yeah, my campaign was around fighting crime and corruption. These two are very, very, very important to me and issues that are close to my heart. Now, I believe that as a nation, we have not done enough to fight crime and corruption. If you look at the issue, let's park corruption for a while. Just look at just crime. As long as you have illegal shebeens near schools,
Yes.
near churches, and near where our children are being educated and stuff like that, and you serve liquor, uncontrollably. I'm not talking of the time during COVID, but what we have been doing so far. You will not be successful to fight crime. As long as you don't have, for instance, your political leaders, in this case, me as the regional council for Windhoek East, and the entire government, especially the head of states, as long as you don't have these people on the front, we need to be on the front of fighting crime. And I want our commander-in-chief, the head of state, must be more visible on the fight against corruption and crime. And this is the way that I believe crime can be defeated. Just keep in mind that we are a small nation, and 96% of our people are Christians. So we have been held hostage by a small minority groups. And we have been allowing crime to grow because we are not focusing on even petty crime. Now, as long as we turn a blind eye on petty crime, for instance, traffic offenders, you will be amazed, and I hope it's something that will stop during my reign. In the city of Windhoek, you will see somebody driving through a red light. You will see somebody ignoring a stop. In most cases, sometimes the traffic officer will stand right there and he will do nothing. As long as we allow those type of crime, we will never win the battle against crime. Crime can be won, but we need to hold people accountable. The head of states must hold the chief of the police accountable. You cannot have the same person heading the Department of Police if the result is not there. Then you need to change your team. And the Lieutenant General of the Police must hold his men accountable. He cannot allow to have these people driving the fight against crime, but there's murder being committed and there's no apprehension. People are simply getting away. So that makes people losing faith and trust in the law enforcing machinery. So this is something that I want to drive very much during my reign.
Okay. Mr. Black, last year, with the fish rot scandal coming out, you wrote extensively on your social media pages about corruption. This subsequently led to you having a meeting with the president of
Yes.
Dr. Hage Geingob.
Yes.
Were you happy with the outcomes of that meeting, if you have to reflect back now?
No, if I have to reflect back to be now, to be honest with you, I'm not happy. Because at the time, to be honest with you, our head of states pleaded ignorance. He was convinced that crime and corruption was not an issue. According to him, during his consultative meeting in all 14 regions,
yes,
at that stage, crime was apparently, according to him, only mentioned on 2 occasions. So today, as I'm sitting here, and reflecting back on what subsequent happened to my meeting with His Excellency, the arrest of the fish rot, the documentary that was released 13 days, exactly 13 days after I see our head of state. If I look back, then today I'm not convinced that our head of state was not aware that corruption was on the order of the day. One of the reasons, if you look at the documentary of Al Jazeera, there is clear evidence that SWAPO got more than 200,000 US dollars of the fish rot money. If you calculate it in today's term, it amounts to about 3.3 billion. There is just no way that my president can tell me or expect me to believe that he could have, or his party could have received that kind of money, thinking that it was coming from the business community of Windhoek. There's just no way. So for me, the president must have known about what was happening. And remember, the other important thing is there is clear evidence from the whistleblower that the first time that they brought this issue of the fish rot under the attention of our lawmakers, yes, was in 2009 for the first time. The second time it was officially reported. The first 2009 was a cautionary thing. 2009 it was officially reported to the anti-corruption. So if you take all these 10 years, how can you be the head of state and you don't know what's happening among your cabinet members for so long?
Mr. Black, going now back to your constituency, just to park the issue around corruption, going back now to crime. One looks at your constituency, very affluent, very well serviced. Compare that now to Tobias Anyeko, compare that to Samara Machel and Moses Garweb. One would say that in terms of crime, the problems are different. Yes.
Yes.
You've got the issue of Shabins.
Yes.
That you mentioned, next to schools and next to churches.
Yes. Yes.
If one reflects on your constituency, one would, I assume, have to deal a lot with crimes that are committed against tourists, versus now your petty crimes where cell phones are grabbed, where rape occurrences occur within the other constituencies mentioned. The first question on that statement is then, what type of collaborative efforts are you going to make with the other regional councils of those constituencies to tackle crime together? And your constituency is well developed. Your problems in your constituency on a development front are not the same with the others. So what do you intend to do to bring general change to the lives of Khomas residents?
I'm happy that you have touched base on tourists. You know that Windhoek is one of the few cities in Africa where the tourists only use the city as a transit hub. They arrive, tonight. They normally don't stay in the city. They would normally stay at lodges outside Windhoek, and the next day they will disappear. You know why these people disappear? It's because of the crime. It's because the tourist cars get broken into. And as long as we have that, you know, we will never take full advantage of the tourism potential for the city of Windhoek. We need to provide safety in order for us to allow the tourists to be encouraged, or to have the the appetite to stay longer. So we need to work harder. You know, Windhoek is one of the cities with no African flair. We need to have an African flair in the city.
Yes.
Safety, African flair. Now, yes, when it comes to the needs and the crime where it's maybe originate and so on, yes, there must be collaboration with the other constituency. And obviously, my intention is to engage my colleagues. It's not only engaging my colleague, but it's also educating Namibians. When the Namibians start seeing a tourist not as somebody who can be targeted for a little short-term gain, but when they start seeing the tourist as a beautiful, welcome guest who should be welcomed and appreciated because he's bringing wealth to the country. So we need to educate the people. We need to educate all the Namibian people to understand the value of a tourist when they see a tourist, for instance.
And then on the other issues, touching not just your residents of your constituency, but for the entire Commerce region, because you mentioned that symbiosis.
Yes.
Yes, for like the basic needs. I mean, how do you see yourself playing a role there?
Yeah, look, my first responsibility, to be honest with you, I'm a councillor, not for the entire region, and I can't go and crap where I'm not dig in, where I'm not supposed to dig in. So I'm supposed to represent the interests of my constituency, first of all.
Yes.
And one of the things that I can tell you, and Namibia is one of the highest tax country in Southern Africa. If I have to sit and add up all the various taxes that people Namibians are paying, especially the members of my constituency, you will be shocked. It's just too many hidden costs. And some of the thing is, for instance, the rural electrification. It is a good thing for the country to be covered with electricity, and for the poor to also enjoy electricity. The question is, who must bear that cost? Is it the responsibility of government, or is it the responsibility of the business community to be levied extra by the city of Windhoek, Nampower, or whoever for those costs? Now, what is currently happening is, unfortunately, the perceived so-called rich are the ones that carry those costs. In my opinion, this is wrong. Government should pay for the cost of extending services to the poor, and not necessarily the so-called rich, wealthy people, because the wealthy people is already overtaxed. And remember, if you don't incentivize people, you just want to tax, you chase investment away. You without a doubt, you save. If you don't chase it away, you prevent more investment. People, when they see, I once spoke to an investor who came and who invest big time here in this country. And I know that investor is currently exploring the possibility of selling and leaving Namibia. And one of the reasons why that investor is considering doing that is because the promise that we gave him when we locked them in to bring them to Namibia versus what we did afterwards, like extending the boundary of a local authority to include his new investment as well for tax purposes, it's not making his business viable. And they are considering to withdraw because of those things. So when we offer incentive for investors, we must be honorable, We must be people of our words. People must trust us that if we give an undertaking, that undertaking, whoever come after us will honor that undertaking, for instance.
Mr. Black, want to hone in on another issue, and that is the issue of IPC. Firstly, in terms of there are a lot of elections that are happening. Some have already occurred within the local authorities and at the regional level.
Yeah.
What is your feeling, or what is the feeling of the party behind coalitions?
No, I think unfortunately, we need coalitions. We need working cooperation with others. We need to work with other people. So at IPC, we are open-minded to look and investigate the possibility of working coalition with other parties. But obviously, it is important that when we have a working coalition, fundamentally, when it comes to material matters, there is no huge differences. And policy is very important. So you can't go into a coalition just for the sake of going into coalition.
Two very, very short questions in the interest of time, Mr. Black.
Yes.
A lot of the opposition parties have been snubbing SWAPO, the ruling party.
Yeah.
What is your view as IPC to that? And then secondly, IPC has done well in the elections, in the local and regional authority elections. Was it a stroke of luck, or is it a sign of things to come?
It is an absolute sign of things to come. Namibia wanted change. And to be honest with you, IPC would have done extremely, extremely better than what we are happy with what we got. But I can honestly tell you that we could have done much better. One of our biggest constraints was the playing field, the level was not equal. Number one, the other party like SWAPO, for instance, they have billions. I don't want to go into where they got the billions, but we know they spend the billions to launch an aggressive campaign. They pay for ads in various NBC TV program before at prime slot during the time. We could not afford that. We didn't have money. We were relying on what our members were paying. We had situation like, for instance, car rental, like at least in 12 of the regions, we needed to have at least 12 4x4 in order to campaign effectively. And to be honest with you, we were shocked that some of the car rental companies, they were prepared to rent the cars out to SWAPO because they are scared of SWAPO, but they were not prepared to rent the cars to other political party because apparently their cars don't return in the condition it was given. But we are a new party. How could we have been treated like that? We couldn't get, believe me, in the whole Windhoek, we couldn't get a car rental that was happy to assist us with car rental. And we didn't have the money. So had we had that, believe me, we would have surprised the nation even more.
Okay. Thank you very much for making the time. Do hope that you would return again to have a longer conversation with us.
Thank you very much. I'm actually running to another meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was Mr. Brian Black. Please do stay tuned for the weather.
I, Frankie, pledge to build a band of brothers.
I, Michael, I pledge to define myself by my character.
I, Gesser, pledge to use my strength for good.
My name is Ethan and I pledge to nurture my fields.
I am Aubrey and I pledge to make the world a better place.
My name is Salatiel Shinedima, the Executive Director of Women's Action for Development, and I pledge to mentor the next generation.